This video is all about SUI, build full stack. SUI delivers the full stack for a new global economy. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into this project, looking into some of the fundamentals such as the team, the tokenomics, the utility, and the overall value proposition, trying to figure out whether this project has what it takes to make it to our portfolio. So you know what, let's talk about the news, let's analyze the charts, and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike, and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all the altcoins, looking for opportunity. And the question is SUI an opportunity? Guys, today we're doing a deep dive. We're looking into some of these details here regarding this project, SUI. A lot of people know about SUI. It's not new. Well, it's fairly new. But it's not new as far as what we've been paying attention to, because SUI has been making some moves, okay? And we're going to be looking into some of these moves. We'll be looking into the team, the tokenomics, like I mentioned, all the details regarding this project, because really what we need to be thinking about right now is which projects are we accumulating? Which projects are we prepared with in order to see a full recovery in this market? Are we waiting for another surge? And if we are, we should be having a clear list of which projects we are interested in to be accumulating. Okay, so very, very smart stuff here as far as preparation, right? We need to get into prepared mode. And ultimately, what I'm going to be doing is taking a retail perspective regarding this deep dive, which means that I want SUI to be prepared to explain and to prepare content regarding its project so that ultimately the end consumer, which would be the retail investor, is ready to go and ready to be bullish. Okay, so we need to make sure that all that documentation is up to par, up to date, the socials, and all the information that we really need. Now, guys, if you want to use the timestamps, there's going to be timestamps below where you can go straight to the summary of this video, but I highly recommend that you watch the full-length lecture here, because we're going to get through a lot of detail that might be very, very useful. All right, guys, so let's get going. Let's see what they got here. We do see build first full stack. Okay, so SUI delivers full stack for a new global economy. Interesting stuff for sure. We have the docs. I have a lot of tabs open for you guys today. A lot of tabs. Unfortunate that there's so many tabs that it makes it very, very difficult. And you will understand why there was so many tabs necessary. Just by the way, I had to view their website at 80% size. Why? Because at its full size, it's too wide, and it's just very hard to navigate when it's full width that way. So feel a little bit more comfortable using it that way at reducing the browser size. Check that out. SUI is the only platform where assets, data, and permissions can be owned, programmed, and verified. The result, superior product reveals trust and, okay, interesting, and value that's shared, not extracted. Yes, that's very important. And that this not extracted brings in something to mind that I'm going to share with you soon, because their ecosystem is growing, even its internal ecosystem. Ownable by design. Interesting. Is this clickable? No. Verifiable by default. Okay. Business ready. And composable and scalable, high performing without trade-off. So, yeah, it is very typical language that we're going to see a lot of L1s use, just to throw it out there. But I'm trying to really get to what makes SUI unique, right? Innovative engineered. So the SUI stack is a native a composable toolkit for builders. So usually it stems from the building aspect of things, right? Because what can be what developers have that are unique can usually result in unique products, right? And unique developments and engineering. So asset service coordination, okay. Trusted data layer, okay. Walrus. So we have Walrus. You guys know that. So essentially they're explaining their tech stack and their layering as far as their modular approach. Asset and service coordination is done by SUI itself, the L1. And then you have the trusted data layer, which is the DPIN or the, again, we talked about Walrus before, guys. I did a deep dive on a lot of SUI projects that you guys requested in the past. So obviously, this is to be considered. And you can see trust data layer, Walrus, a small project here on SUI, but a very necessary one that is native to the L1 and necessary. Then you have data security, which is seal, which again in line with its marketing, with the SUI-ness and the water and all that. We got seal, and then we have this right here, verifiable off-chain compute. So a bit of compute, and Nautilus is also part of their stack. So they have a lot happening. Even a deep book. This has been on my radar for a good while here. Liquidity management by Deep Book, which is cool, and SUI NS. This is also very important because you're looking at decentralizing our internet in such. So you have SUI name service, identity management. So if we're gonna have a decentralized internet, being able to have some identities out there, to manage this in such a way to verify who we are and who we're not. Okay, we need some of these features, and SUI's offering this. So pretty good. Nice visual appeal here for SUI and their website. I like that. Why builders choose SUI? Okay, so this is where things get a little interesting because so far I haven't really seen the core component that I'm looking for. Build fast with modular tools. Okay, a lot of blockchains have that. Scale on resilient infrastructure. Okay, as well. Yeah, deliver familiar experiences with transparency and trust. Look, a lot of this is fluff. Okay, a lot of this is fluff. Get with it. How users benefit, real world ownership of assets, identifying data. Okay, this is the thing. Yeah, I've been talking about users being able to take full custody of all their digital assets, not just their coins. Everything that is deployed on an L1, everything that a end user does on an L1 should be able to be held in self custody. And I think that's what they're alluding to. Value created becomes a value earned, and so on. Okay, so interesting stuff. A little bit of fluff there. I do have a lot of tabs for us to look through, because as you can see, like there's lots of avenues to take here on the website. Industry transformation powered by SUI, institutions and capital markets, AI. So these are literally like their ecosystem focus, right? This is how they're focusing their ecosystem. And you can see that there's many. Some of them are more than others. Now, the institutional aspect of the thing is, capital markets. That's going to be the compliance and transparency and all of that. A big topic nowadays for sure. The AI can't get bigger than that. So privacy first, data pipelines, verifiable model outputs, and what I would like to see is how their AI integrations are going to take in this notion that people should be able to take their assets in full custody. So that's the thing. Ownership, real ownership. That how do we as AI, how do we get these agents or AI models becoming full ownership of the user? That's basically what I want to see in the near future. And they already have their complete deep in protocol, which is Walrus. Guys, go check out my deep dive on Walrus. I think it's very, very interesting. Walrus, as a project, is leveling up the decentralization of on-chain storage. So that's great there to see. Decentralized finance, DeFi, a staple, a go-to, a need. We have Bluefin, a project that we've caught really, really early here on the channel, and made it part of our a daily routine to see what's going on with Bluefin. It had its moment, and now we're at discounts on a lot of projects, especially projects that came out during, let's say, about a year ago. So they came out at a level where the market was on a downturn. So you get a lot of discounts at the current moment, on various projects, even within the SUI ecosystem. Decentralized finance. We have, again, we're looking for perp dexes. We're looking for, liquidity pools. We're looking for a lot, but liquidity is important and having that, liquidity, access to liquidity. But right now, I think their DeFi offerings, as far as Bluefin, is what a lot of people might be interested in, given that it's a perp dex part of the narrative. And then last but not least, gaming. So gaming has been a bit of trouble lately. We got to admit that it hasn't been that easy, okay, for gaming. Now let me just quickly reshift this screen a little bit here, and and so that we can see this a little bit better. I'm going to show you my verdict later. No sneaking, right there. Okay, guys, right there. No sneaking. We're going to talk about that and all that good stuff soon. Okay, so let's just kind of go through this. Powered by, okay, AI. Sorry, right here, gaming. So ultimately, yeah, that's for me the biggest concern. The concern is that the gaming is in a bit of an issue right now, given that there's not a lot of people interested in gaming. Okay, not a lot whatsoever. So how do we fix this? How do we, essentially get more interest in this space regarding gaming? It's going to be very hard to get a lot of more people in gaming at this moment because a lot of people are underwater and very disappointed in their gaming portfolio. But it is what it is, guys. It's not always, fun and games all the time. So we got to just be prepared that all of this requires patience. So gaming, and then you have a few more. Start building. I think that gaming is going to make a comeback, guys. I think it's going to make a comeback. I think it's a great opportunity to see how crypto and in-game assets and again NFTs come to fruition in a virtual environment. So I think it's coming. They did great stuff console wise and hardware wise, and even software wise. Supporting gaming, small gaming, meaning mini games and so on. So I think that's great. We'll talk about more about that later. Start building, start coding, start earning, and so on. Start connecting. Stay in the loop. They're on Discord, they're X, and so on. I had the privilege to go and visit. Yes, their Discord is active. They have somebody there taking care of it. Their X is very active. I appreciate what they got going on there. And then the footer, lots of links, tons of links. And which is great. You get lots of information, but it's a little bit everywhere. Okay, a little bit everywhere. So we're gonna try our best to navigate as best as possible. Now, while we're here, I just want to be clear about their solutions, and this is their ecosystem. Okay, their ecosystem is institutions, obviously the capital markets that we talked about, AI, DeFi, gaming. But one thing that they did leave out was BTCFi. Okay, this is a hotter topic. This is something that's coming out right now as we speak. They're kind of pushing it. So we're going to talk about that very, very soon. And their USDC concept, the fact is that they also have their own stable coin, not only just USDC. So we'll kind of touch upon these things and bring some light to some of that. Okay, so I'm going to do my best here. I'm going to just throw this out here. Look at all the tabs that could potentially be open here. I wish there was, a little bit more clarity so that not so many tabs would need to be open. And that's one of my this website is very complex and very complicated in my opinion. Okay, so to be honest, it could be cleaned up. It could have been a little bit more designed with some simplicity, no doubt. So let's try to make this a little bit more simple. Advancing the adoption of SUI. So about SUI foundation. So they do have a foundation, right? So the foundation is usually made up of core developers and early adopters and certain high level individuals within the organization. Now, the SUI Foundation exists in service of the whole SUI community and is committed to three principles. This is who they are. This is what they think of, okay? Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up significantly is because the SUI team and the foundation control a lot of the reserve capital. Okay, we got to be real about that. There's tokenomics is not very decentralized. Okay, so we have to know a little bit what the foundation is. Join the foundation. Start with Move. Okay, start learning Move. This is the first time, and I hope I didn't scrape right over it when on the website, but this is the first time that I see the Move language being spoken about. Okay, so we'll be talking about this, and this is an important one. The foundation. Okay, and then the foundation is literally usually a funded organization of individuals that are high level, okay, within the organization. So think about that. Not necessarily a DAO, okay? There is a sort of governance, but it's not as strong for the investor as you think, okay? So SUI documentation. This is where things get really hectic because you get so much documentation here to the point that I wished that they had the retail investor in mind. And when I say that is that you need to have a Git book. And then they do have a Git book, but it's not a Git book that is typical. Now, I'm going to say this. We think of SUI as a very established project. We think of SUI as a very high level project. We can see that they put a lot of effort in their marketing. But what they need to realize is that a lot of retail investors, especially people within the industry like you and I that are here doing research on various projects, we want to be able to gain clarity quickly, meaning it's not necessarily just only speed, but we don't want to waste time digging through papers and papers and papers and websites and links and try to find things that should be easily accessible through a very simple Git book that is tailored for retail research. And the retail research doesn't need to know about engineering, doesn't need to know about the mathematics, doesn't need to know about the physics, doesn't need to know about the computer science, doesn't need to know much about that. Very little. But the rest of it needs to be clearly handed to us. If not, you have friction. And when there's friction, there's uncertainty and there's doubt. So I'm going to try my best to give you some of that clarity so there is no ambiguity. So for developers, we don't really go there, but we're going to talk about a bit about that process. Validators, we're going to talk about validators and how many nodes there are out there and how many validators are there and how centralized or yeah, how much concentration of power they do have. And then we talk about SUI and its tokenomics. And again, you can see tokenomics, cryptography, and standards. I have the tokenomics page up. And I'll be honest, there's not enough information there. And I'll show you that in a minute. And then some different references, DAppKit, API, and framework, SDA, Rust SDK. Which I'm not sure why they have a Rust SDK when they have their own language, but again, doesn't matter. SUI blog and SUI ecosystem, which I'm ready to go. So build, and that's about it. Okay, guys. You'll notice that it's very difficult to navigate this because even by reading these, you're not really getting everything you need clearly. Now, this is the Git book that I was able to dig up, okay, and find. And I found I just landed here on the tokenomics section for sure, but we can look at even the architecture. You're talking about the different components that we already talked about, okay? Storage and different protocol level integrations like security and consensus mechanism. If you want to know more about their consensus mechanism, it is a proof of stake, so it's going to be very typical consensus. Components, just remember that SUI is a very fast blockchain. Its speed, its finality is very quick. It's faster than many, if not all, blockchains. Pretty much one of the top blockchains right now regarding speed. Safety, meaning security, because of its integration of its proprietary language. Move, it's not so proprietary, but it is fairly proprietary. I'm waiting for the section where they actually talk about their language, and then we'll dig in a bit deeper. So components of SUI, transactions, tokens, objective, move, the programming language used to create smart contracts in SUI. So it's not EVM. Let's see if we can open this up in a new tab. It's not EVM. I mean, it doesn't use Solidity like Ethereum does and all the EVM compatible projects, right? Has its own Move language. Now, if we talk about where Move came from, the Move language was derived from Facebook and its employees that were once there working on a crypto project. There at Facebook at Meta, and through regulatory constraints and pressures, Meta decided to abandon the project. So the team said, instead of just abandoning all the work that we've done, let's take this language and come up with something of our own. And here we have SUI, and also Aptos was also derived from that same language. But Move is one of those languages that basically offers some key features. Number one, SUI is its own object-centric global storage addresses represents object IDs. This is getting into the computer science of things, but mostly what people like about it is that it includes a level of security, and obviously that's very important for a blockchain. Okay, so key functions and entry functions, so on. Getting into high-level concepts behind the language. And again, just understand the language is a language that came from that part. And the majority of the team members come from the Meta camp, essentially. They're ex-members of Meta. So components, networks, full node, and you have your validators. Validators are responsible for assigning transaction staking, gas price references, and tallying rules in addition to validating blockchain activity. Okay, typical, very typical. And full nodes can validate blockchain activity, including transactions and checkpoints and epoch changes. So this is important because these guys are the ones that are actually literally involved on the chain and get in there. Now, typically we expect that no token holders will have voting rights and so on and so forth. Well, guys, it's a little bit different here for SUI. The node validators have a lot to offer as far as that control structure. Okay, so we have to understand that. So if we talk about nodes just a little bit, There's not many, and I'm going to get into a tab in a second to show you some numbers. There's not many nodes out there, okay, and it's semi concentrated, but those nodes, those validators hold a lot of liquidity, which means that ultimately they have a lot of strength. Okay, so if we want decentralized strength, we need to see that the token holders are the ones that are voting, and that's one of the biggest issues, that we don't have that. Yeah, your utility of the token comes down. So governance right now, just to throw that out there while we're talking about governance, SUI governance is mostly tied to validator level decisions, which no full ecosystem control for token holders essentially. So nothing regarding the treasury, nothing regarding the grant distribution or ecosystem incentives or major strategic direction is not at the fingertips of any token holder. So we have to understand that that's a very centralized way of running a blockchain, and it's fine because there's other aspects that decentralize. Okay, so just to be real about that. Okay, storage architecture. Again, this is good because they have their walrus stack going on there, but I think what they're referring to here is the chain on chain. Lots of information here. Storage architecture, validators, pruning full nodes, as you can see, unpruned full nodes. Lots of technical stuff. Consensus. I think a lot of us, the epochs, the quorums. This is so typical. Write requests, transactions, certified. So basically, SUI uses a directed I can't even say that graph based on consensus protocol called the Mystic Labs made it, named it Mystic whatever, that optimizes the both low latency and high throughput. And this is something that a lot of people are talking about with regards to SUI, is that their ability to transact is so quick, faster than Solana, faster than many other blockchains out there. And it's because of its parallelism. It's basically is able to run or validate in parallel rather than in a linear approach using DAGs. So DAGs is what the technology that can be used to achieve that. So Mystic only requires 3 rounds of messages to commit blocks from the DAGs. So you can see that DAGs is what a lot of new blockchains are using to scale a lot faster. Okay, so pretty good. And finality, guaranteed that a transaction or block after confirmation is permanently added to the network. So their finality is quick and their speed is quick. I'm not going to get into more into details regarding that. And their security, the validators and so on. Their language adds to the security. Their consensus adds to the security aspect. And again, as I mentioned, the consensus is the process of which the majority of the nodes on the blockchain network agree on the current state of the network. That's basically what we're referring to when we talk about achieving consensus. Whereas validators say, yes, we agree with what's going on chain. Okay, so these are great things. Now, once we get into the tokenomics side of things, I feel like I'm left a little bit out of the loop. Okay, and I started to click around. This is the main page. Tokenomics on SUI, staking and unstaking, bridging tokens and gas fees. Now, if you look at tokenomics on SUI, I want to know what the token distribution is, not necessarily just the emissions or the flywheel, but I want to know who's getting what and what's the percentage. And unfortunately, I could not find this, so I had to get a hold of one of the mods or a team member on the Discord, and they were able to give me a random image, and I don't know where that image came from. And to be honest, they weren't even sure where that image came from either. That's a problem. And I'm digging here, guys, looking for some distribution. So what I mean by that is, usually when you have tokens, where you have a project that basically come up with not only a schedule on how to release those tokens, but who are getting them, what categories are they going to the team? Is it going to early VCs, early investors? Is it going to some sort of treasury? Are they going towards rewards? Is it going to be an airdrop? So many different categories where tokens can be emitted to. But in this case, there's not much clarity there. So I'm going to do my best to show you what I was able to gather. Again, guys, if you have any information, valid or information that comes directly from the primary source, feel free to, let me know. But the reality is that for me was a bit of a flop. It provides the opportunity to stake. So we can stake. That's a SUI economic model. So native token on SUI is SUI, the ticker as SUI. It's a long-term financial needs of Web3. That's what it's meant to do, is support that. It's supposed to be a driving force, okay? So its purpose. What is its purpose? This is what I always ask myself. Why do we need a token on SUI? Well, because it's an L1, most of the times it's a driving force like gas. Then you talk about liquidity. Can we add liquidity so that the DeFi aspect, the trading aspect, and it has liquidity in order for that to happen. The transfer of value to go back and forth for it to happen nice and smoothly provides the opportunity to stake SUI to participate in the proof of stake mechanism. So not only that, the proof of stake, you get rewarded for staking through some sort of residual reward structure, right? SUI is the asset domination needed to pay the gas fee. The denomination, of course, every project has some sort of denomination. The thing is, with SUI, we start to say, okay, we pay gas, but who pays the gas? This is how SUI differentiates itself from the rest of the space for the most part, and it's smart. I might be jumping the gun here, but it's very important to understand that its objective is not necessarily to be to be very retail friendly. Okay, so this is key. If there's anything that you're going to be taking away from what I'm saying here is this. So SUI's objective is to provide a scenario where the gas fees are not paid by the end user. Right? They're paid by the app creator. But at the same time, it could be that the app creator decides to, carry over some of these fees. So it's a matter of understanding that the SUI team didn't want friction for the end user, right? The end user should be able to come in and basically transact very easily without much friction. So not needing any SUI on their wallet to actually interact. Imagine that. I know a lot of you guys know already how Ethereum works. Well, if you don't have any ETH in your wallet, you're done. You got to go hunt down some ETH before you can actually do anything. And that's one of the issues, right? So you have the gas fee that is still required, right? It definitely is, but it's not necessary that it is required by the end user to hold and to provide that mechanism or that gas right there and there. Okay, so yeah, I think that's great because then it creates less friction for the user, the end user. Okay, so key differentiation is that ultimately the gas fees are like sponsored transactions, right? It's basically developer app pays for the gas. Okay, essentially. And of course, there's other um, great aspects to what they've built here, but that for me is amazing because that means it's more user friendly. For mass adoption, that's perfect. Okay. So, tokenomics on SUI. Let's continue. The stakeholders in the blockchain tokenomics are vested, so they have their release schedule and so on. We'll talk about that in a second because again, we'll look for some graphics to align ourselves with some of that information in a second. But what I like about this is that it explains a bit of the flywheel, which is this storage fund. Okay, the reward or the gas that ends up being produced here within their flywheel gets put into this fund. Okay, and this fund, technically speaking, becomes like like a temporary or a soft burn, right? Technically, um so basically this, a portion of the transaction fees is effectively removed from, the liquidity temporarily, right? Via storage fund. So usage driven, so whenever the L1 is used, and it's literally those tokens get or sunk into a pool that is meant to be, that is called the storage fund rather than burning. So they're still in circulation, they're still out there, but they're not burnt, right? They're not completely out there. They're still there, but they're not so liquid. So it's like like a semi burn. Tokens are locked and they're illiquid, they'll eventually enter in circulation. So burning means that you're not going to enter circulation anymore, and the only way you're going to get them back in is if you mint fresh new tokens, right? And this is the thing here: there's no minting anymore. They just put them in this storage fund that eventually goes back into circulation. But the problem here is with this storage fund is that it behaves like a soft burn. And the question is, who owns these tokens, gets access to them, right? And that's the foundation, the team, and that's where things get a little bit hectic. right? Because it eventually becomes a lot of capital that becomes very centralized. So we have to consider this, okay? So SUI is great, but its tokenomics seem to have a very centralized feel and its mechanisms. Okay, so this storage fund, you get the rewards or the fees, they go back into here, and then they get back into the hands of the powers that be. Token supply, as I mentioned, it's a fixed at 10 billion, the total number of SUI that can ever be minted, but the total supply is not available for transactions and so on. Okay, very typical. Now, token distribution, we'll talk about this, but SUI holders stake their tokens to validators and new committee is formed. The reference gas prices are set as described in SUI gas fees. Now we can open this up. Let's see, open in the new tab. The storage fund size adjusts using a new inflow of previous epoch. Okay. Vesting schedule. Again, no visuals, unfortunately, but I have something for you. And then the airdrops, they're often when the new token launches, miners set aside a percentage. There are no SUI airdrops to support the launch of SUI mainnet network. Good. The storage fund, SUI pays for gas fees, data storage. So if SUI is paying for these gas fees and storage on the network, a potential problem arises. However, when the new validator comes on chain, even though the validator is new, it still must pay storage costs for activity that happened before it was part of the network. Okay, so this is how their flywheel works. Storage fund rewards. Total stake is calculated as the sum of user stake plus the SUI tokens. Again, very technical stuff here. Just understand that the storage fund is basically part of the flywheel, and some of the gas fees get put in there. Includes three key features: past transactions contribute. Storage fund must pay out only the returns on its capital and does not distribute its principal. Interesting. The storage fund includes a deletion option. If you delete data, you get a portion of your fund and your storage fees paid originally. Okay, pretty good. And then we get into more about the validator, the staking pool, and the requirements, and so on. If you want to, and this is although part of tokenomics, it generally isn't. When I've done over 140 something deep dives already, and generally this is a different topic. You should have a distribution schedule, a vesting schedule, and they do have this, the staking and then the unlocking concept right here, unstaking and so on. And if you're interested in that, what happens, what's the process, is there a waiting list, and so on and so forth. Bridging tokens, going from the SUI bridge. Again, they have different ones, different bridges for Ethereum, and this a native cryptocurrency of Ethereum network, and so on. And then you have your gas fee page, which I think I already opened up, but this is their structure, computational units, lots of different things, storage units, and so on. Lots of complexity if you're, mathematics and physics and so on. So my biggest problem here is that with regards to tokenomics, you're not really getting what tokenomics are. This is not very typical tokenomics, right? And this is a problem, is because although staking and all of that is part of the tokenomics and validators and all that, but what we as a retail investor look for is much different. So we talked about the move concept. We talked about the gas fees as best as we can based on what they offered. And then let's see what else I was able to dig up all over the site. So here we have the circulating supply. This is the emission schedule. Okay. Now, again, they're not telling us the allocation, just the emissions. The categories are described here, but we don't know how much percentage. So we got to manually check them out, I guess, towards the end, what the percentage is. We can see that visually, I guess, and kind of make the inference. But as you can see, 2026, we are already in October-ish, July, right into here, April. Okay, we're right into here. You can see we're in the thick of things, right? We're in the thick of things, right in the middle of a clear uptrend in distribution of all categories. Series A and B investors getting their cut. Miston Labs getting their cut. And again, we'll talk about what Miston Labs is. If you're new to the space, especially understanding SUI, know that Miston Labs is the development team behind SUI. They create all native applications in the SUI ecosystem. Community reserve, again, who controls the reserve? It's the team or the foundation, same thing. Early contributors, that's again at the highest level, meaning that's capital that could be very liquid. And when I see early contributors, those are early stakeholders along with the team. Any Series A or B VCs that get in, those are early stakeholders are going to be willing to take their initial investment off the table as soon as there's any profit. These are the people that are bring risk to dilution, unfortunately. Okay, community access programs. Okay, again, that's probably foundational level capital and stake subsidies. So yeah, that's fine. You're gonna get some rewards, which is great, and that represents a decent amount. If you go through all these categories, guys, and you really look at and you really think about how they're allocated, is very centralized. There's a lot of centralization, not only through the allocation, but also through the governance of this of SUI. Okay, so it is what it is. Now they might have a decent amount of validators, which we're going to talk about in a second. But is that enough? Is that enough to give us a real decentralized feeling? Okay, so that's about it with regards to this tab. I have tabs, guys, and websites and blog posts from 2023. Again, I'm trying to find proper tokenomics. SUI token unlocks, and this is the best I could get, and that was on that website as well. And I read through this, and nothing major, nothing important. I'm just saying, like, this is unfortunate when you have to dig. You have a big website full of graphics and full of space, and all you get is repetition, unfortunately. As you see, I'm clicking and trying to get it through. SUI delivers infrastructure-friendly tokenomics, again, from 2023. I feel like this is where they still felt the aggression in the market, and maybe they had more marketing dollars for documentation. And this is great. Proof of stake, the use, and so on. They educating SUI gas price mechanism. We talked about that. Um, and predictable infrastructure fees. This is great. That's the truth. That predictability for end user is amazing because you know exactly how to interact. And for the most part, the incentive is not to have any gas fees required from the end user. So the reference gas price, SUI storage fund. Again, this whole thing, validators who write transaction to the chain today may not be the same as who do it in the future, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they're trying to make this fun for this flywheel happening. Let's get rid of these and let's continue going. Final thoughts. Again, a lot of repetition, and you can see they even talk about the delete option. And this is how you do a deep dive, guys. You literally have to scrape through content. Announcing SUI tokenomics, again, more repetition, users, validators, the SUI token. This is all very basic. Sure, this should all be on a Git book that is maintained nice and cleanly. Gas price mechanism and all this, SUI storage fund. Again, more repetition, guys. The governance, protocol upgrade, the other SUI governance changes are passed through on-chain voting proposal. The SUI token is useful in that it delivers token holders with the ability to participate in this process. Very little of the process, though. Okay, further details of SUI governance will be released over the upcoming weeks. Again, this is an old document, so we're waiting for more of that. And there's very little that the actual token holders can vote on. Again, 2022. Okay, so I'm looking for whatever I can get. This is their deflationary aspect because there is no burn mechanism. It's not a deflationary aspect. It's the storage fund. Like I said, they will get back into circulation. So they have a fixed supply of 10 billion, and then they have the storage fund that continuously takes tokens out of circulation. Adoption naturally reinforces scarcity, even though transactions on SUI's burns tokens. So as the network grows more, it doesn't burn. Every transaction on SUI burns tokens. They just get put into this fund. So as a network grows, more tokens are removed from circulation, steadily increasing. That's deceiving. They're not burnt, right? They're put in a fund, they're put in a wallet, and that wallet again is in control by the team. SUI removed from circulation, so the ARM removed through that storage fund, but then again, I don't know when and if and how they may come back into circulation. As of now, they're doing a great job taking them out of circulation. Then why not just burn them, right? That's how I look at it. As SUI onboards more users and holders, the same fixed supply must support greater demand. Deflation is a feature, not a bug. More transactions make more tokens take more available. Okay, make each token more available. So this is good on top of the fixed supply, storage fees, and scarcity. So they're trying to, create scarcity by having that fund. The question is why do you need a fund? Why can't you just have a burn mechanism? Right? Because they want the flexibility to issue more tokens without minting more. Maybe that's the case. Um, let's talk about the team here for a second. So as we're kind of making sense of all of this, the best we can with what they offer, because there's more that can be said about SUI. They're doing quite a bit. And I think the summary is going to be very valuable because, again, through the digging throughout socials, a lot of things pop up directly from the development team. And this is the team itself. We got Evan, we got Sam, we got Denny, we got George and Costas. These are all heavyweight individuals. I just watched a podcast, an interview from Costas. Very bright individual, well equipped for driving this team. Evan, everybody here. This is a solid team. Okay, so we could talk about them a little bit, but I do want to talk about their ecosystem first because it's important to understand that the team itself, although they're high level, the team itself, does present um, an opportunity, and the reason being is because their experience is development. So what they took on board is to actual develop a native ecosystem rather than sit back and wait for a third party to develop an ecosystem. And this is what Ethereum does. This is what SUI does. This is what, sorry, not SUI, Solana does. This is what a lot of projects do. SUI doesn't do that. SUI actually gets involved. Their team, the Miston Labs, actually creates applications for their ecosystem. And that those native applications are tooled to precision to fit their blockchain. I think that is bullish. Before we talk about that further, I think what we need to talk about is their vesting. As you can see from a vesting schedule perspective, okay, we are continuously getting, let me get rid of this, emissions. And we're, again, as I mentioned, we're in the thick of things. We got the unlock community reserves. Okay, that's fine. That's for the community. Staking, they need to get they need to get their piece. Early contributors, problem. Series B, problem. Community access, okay, that's done already anyway. Miston Labs, not so much of a problem, not so much, but untracked problem because all of this is tied up in contracts that are in control by the team. So this is the problem. When you're emitting tokens, how much are you emitting per day? You're emitting approximately 1.37 every month, April 1st, May 1st. So you can see that you're emitting. Every time you're emitting, you're hoping that there's enough demand, enough use of the network so that there's enough in demand of the token. Okay, that's what you're hoping for. Now there is that not burn. There is that concept of deflationary, that their mechanism there that could keep, that is going to keep the dilution at bay, the risk of dilution at bay, which is great. So we're keeping all of this in mind. Let's continue. Um, so with regards to their ecosystem, why would somebody want to hold their token? Why would you want it? Well, the ecosystem is growing. I'll be honest, the biggest criticism that I'm hearing, and even from myself, that I'm seeing, is that there's not one project that is really championing right now, right? We saw Walrus do really well on the socials for a good while, and then the rest of them are like chain agnostic projects. Pith, you guys like Pith? You guys know I talk about Pith quite a bit. It's not native to SUI. This is not a SUI project. This is a chain agnostic Oracle. Data Pith is on all Oracle, on all L1s. So you can't really say this is a value proposition that is unique to SUI. And you got to keep on going. Like you got Surf, a wallet, and you can load more and keep on looking and looking and looking and find other things. I'm sure you're gonna Scallop DeFi, which is good. No, this is yeah, it's an interest rate machine. A bit of DeFi, and then we have different things, different games, little mini games, and so on. And as you can see, NFTs, lots of stuff happening, but none of them is really spearheading market share or mind share. Mind share, even more important. Okay, so we're waiting for that. Now, which parts of this ecosystem should you be interested in? Now, instead of going through individual projects, I figured let's talk about the ones that they're looking at. Again, the DeFi. SUI moves assets securely and seamlessly. DeFi, we're talking about Deepbook, we're talking about Bluefin, we're talking about Cetus, we're talking about Scallop, we're talking about a lot of different projects that are already there and waiting to see them flourish. I'm very, very bullish on SUI DeFi. And there's more coming up. There's more. Again, that Bitcoin Fi, BTC Fi is quite interesting. Creating a trusted, verifiable AI future. So we're getting a bit of action on AI front very soon. Look at their website, so well done. But again, I'm still feel like overcomplicated without concentrated information. Sui powers trusted AI. AI infra can't be verified, and again, they're looking at this. I don't see them doing anything major there, but you can see that they have a stack. They have the infra. They got it going. Keep AI models, users' data, and results private. That's what Seal does. Seal's not making much noise at the current moment. But then again, are you going to wait for this thing to pump? Maybe go look at what Seal is about and what's their value proposition. And that might be a way to diversify within the actual SUI ecosystem. Okay, so all different types of apps and so on and so forth, and dive deeper into AI on SUI. They do have some blogs and so on, some videos to watch, so you can catch up on all of that. Again, there's lots of projects out there. Then you have the institutional blockchain. I don't know why, but I don't get an institutional feel from SUI. Not to say that it can achieve it, but I personally would feel that it would suit it best if it try to its best to comply, no doubt, but institutional aspect requires next level types of complacence, and I'm not really interested in that, to be honest. But again, institutions need speed, scalability, price predictability, and security to reach their next level. I think we all need it. It's not this institutions, but institutions need framework that at the end of the day is not necessarily voted on by the users. That's the problem, right? And we're seeing this right now. We're seeing this big issue throughout the space regarding regulation and institutionalization, and this pressures from our traditional finance models. And I feel like being compliant is going to put pressure on SUI to bend over. And for me, I don't want to. I would never want to see SUI do that. They're already centralized enough. More centralization, is would be next level. Capital markets are constrained, unified. So talking about capital markets, bringing them on chain, real world assets, tokenized metals, stocks, commodities, this and that, tokenizing everything is pretty much what they're going for. I don't see them spearheading that significantly yet, but gaming, yes. They're probably one of the first blockchains, them, AVAX, and maybe a couple others that have really taken on embraced gaming, and rightfully so. I know gaming from a price perspective has looked pretty bad, but gaming is the true, in my opinion, the true environment to test the use case for blockchain technology, right? You're able to have an in-game currency, which all games have, and in-game assets, which is what all games have from the beginning of time. So why not put an economy on a game that resembles real world so we can use it and see how it actually applies? And I feel like this is going to be the next wave of gaming. It just requires a bit of patience here, guys. And again, their tech stack supports it. Even with the zero knowledge, the ZK login allows players to sign in with familiar accounts like Google, Twitch. This is what I was saying. Part of SUI's focus is to make frictionless applications and experiences, ones of which don't resemble Web3. They resemble what they're already familiar with. This is the key for SUI. In my opinion, this is the key. But at the same time, not compromising the things that make Web3 unique and important. Okay, like yeah, basically full custody and security, and being anonymous to a degree and all that kind of stuff. Now this. So I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but this is hot. And I expect to have Tao release some good videos on this going forward. Tao is a very informed individual with regarding Bitcoin's architecture. He studies that on the side. He's definitely one individual that I would like him to chime in on and see what he thinks about this. But Bitcoin potential: do more with your Bitcoin, earn yield, trade, lend via SUI. Are we talking about native Bitcoin here, SUI? Are we talking about wrapped Bitcoin? And I've been talking about unlocking Bitcoin's liquidity forever. We've seen Cardano try to do it, and it's still trying to do it. We've seen Hemi, a newer project coming out, doing it spectacularly. Okay, I love their approach. We're seeing many projects, start to try to tap into Bitcoin's liquidity via wrapped Bitcoin and bridging. But the reality is that nothing beats native liquidity to put Bitcoin to work. So Bitcoin is the most secure store of value, but its financial utility is severely limited. Why? Because it's landlocked. And if you ever hear me speak about this concept, most, of course, maxis don't like that I say this. But the reality is, if you want Bitcoin to have more utility other than a store of value, you got to get it off its island and start, mingling within the other blockchains. You can do more with it. You can earn, lend, trade, whatever. And that's what you really want your Bitcoin for ultimately, and to be able to scale it up somehow. So again, I'm not going to get into more detail here because there's a lot to be spoken about, but this is definitely a valuable implementation to their tech stack. Okay, so pretty good stuff. DeFi built different. SUI moves assets across. DeFi is probably their hottest topic. Again, very, very, and like I said, Cetus, Bluefin, Scallop, Deepbook, all of these are great implementations to their ecosystem. Now, I know that maybe this image came out of sort. I should have done it earlier, but it's all good. Many tabs out here right now. This is what I was able to grab from one of the mods, I guess, on their platform, on Discord. This is it. Okay. So you can see the early contributors get 20%, investors 14%. These are their series of investors, their VCs that got in. This is a lot, guys. Miston Labs, the team that's behind it. Okay, again, they got to eat. But at the same time, that's a lot of capital concentrated to early stakeholders. Already three categories fully stacked. Then you got community access program and app testers and the community reserves, and you're talking about delegations and all the validators and all of this. This is a very centralized allocation, right? The voting token holders do not vote on any of this, and a good portion of it goes towards the early stakeholders. One, two, three. You're talking about 44% right off the bat. That is clearly within the hands of early stakeholders, including the team. Okay. And that's a lot. That's a lot, guys. What can I say? And this right here, 50% of it going to the community. Who controls that? Who calls the shots? Right? Is it the team? Again, guys. Again. Let's check out their socials. Their socials seem pretty interesting, doing pretty good. Got lots of followers, guys. These guys are champions with the following count. Sorry, I'm just trying to zoom in so we can see a bit better here. As you can see, lots of followers, 1.1 million followers. Crazy community they built. Congratulations. That's great. We see introduction Hashi, a new era of Bitcoin. So this is March 19th. Bitcoin finance on SUI. Okay, Bitcoin's market cap exceeds 1 trillion. So we're talking about, the heavyweight out here. If we can extract, or not extract, but allow Bitcoin's liquidity to move across chains, we're going to have that frictionless mentality as well, that obviously line up with their value proposition to retail traders. But imagine allowing retail traders or retail users of crypto to, gain access to their Bitcoin no matter which one they're using. In this case, maybe even SUI. That's great, guys. So Hashi is here to change that with commitments from the industry leaders, including BitGo, Bullish, and so on and so forth, to bring some of that over to DeFi on SUI. Okay, so that's pretty good. SUI's live, SUI network. Okay, Luma. I don't know. We're going live in Miami. Cool stuff. May 5th. Maybe I'll show up there. That's not bad of an idea. Massive volume milestones, AI executed transactions, and so on. So lots of good stuff. Um, yeah, lots of good stuff. You got NFTs. What is this? Walrus? W? I see a W. Win Walrus that's being built. Yes, Walrus is great. Lots of good communication here. And I was looking around, digging around, and their gaming aspect, the gaming Wednesdays. You can see that they're really big into the gaming field, which is great. I like to see that. Again, I think it's a very undervalued um, right now segment within the crypto space. and it could be a good one. Overtake was a great partnership. They got a lot of good relationships out there that we're going to talk about very soon. Again, I couldn't really find some great game changing, um, let's say, announcements other than that one on Overtake. But the rest of them, they have some partnerships that we could speak about, but they don't really announce them too much. Like they don't really push them a lot. I'm wondering if they're very strategic or not. I know this one is the Overtake is strategic. It's really good for their gaming ecosystem that they're trying to build. Okay, so let's talk about the validators a little bit. We're bouncing around a little bit. I apologize, guys, but this is the only way we get a deep dive done. We kind of do our best to navigate what the team has given us. And you can see that, where are we here? We have, what are we looking at? Validators. Okay, perfect. We see that we have a few validators. We have 27 validators. That's moderate. Okay, it's moderate in terms of decentralization. Okay, then we start looking at their concentration of what they hold, right? And you can see, like, you got big ones, right? Big, they're big ones. They're earning APY 1.5%, 12% commission. Next epoch, okay, fine, fine, fine. But you got some big ones. You got some big ones, right? Type of thing. And I did take a look here, the SUI scan, to look at some wallets. You can see that there's some concentrated wallets, but most of them are Binance and Bybit and so on. So you're getting some concentrated liquidity in some of the exchanges, for sure. Right into here, you got the bigger ones, but then again, you got some of the contracts down here that they get a bit smaller, which is fine. But it seems to be what bothers me the most is this concentrated stake here on the liquidity on the validators. Look at this, big ones, big ones, big ones, right? So they have a lot of control. Even Bluefin is down here, which is again their perp dex, and Shin Labs. Not sure what they build or what they're up to, but they're up to something. So that's it. Okay, so a little bit of node moderate decentralization there. We're slowly getting to socials here, guys, and the team. As you can see, Miston Labs is the building foundation of Web3 for SUI. This blog is pretty much dead. They don't really post much there since 2022, but they're active on the Discord, and they do have a Telegram that is, fairly active. So go check it out. And let's jump right into the team section. Let's do that right here. They do have a section right here on crypto rank, which I kind of like their website. So again, we'll just give them a quick shout out here to all of them in a nice concentrated way right here. You can see these dudes, they're co-founders, co-founder, got 5 co-founders, all coming from the same direction. Okay, we'll talk about that. Let's do that. So if we start looking at, as this loads, I go on their LinkedIn, the SUI Foundation, right? You start looking at this is the foundation itself. You go to people, you check who's part of the foundation. You're gonna have 209 associate members. Great stuff. But the real members that we all look for are the ones that are part of Miston Labs, which are these guys right here. Unfortunately, like, they're not SUI Foundation members, but I would safe to say that they are, or they should be, right, and directly connected. And you start looking at Miston Labs. These again, 216 associate members. This is a big team, strong team, mostly out of the United States. This is what they want to be. They're based in America, so they're an America-based project that's part of a narrative here in the crypto space as well. And again, looking for compliancy in America will give them benefits, particularly tax benefits and so on, being in America. Well, that's pretty good. And then we start to look at the team individuals separately. Miston Labs, this is what we're going to look at. Who are these people that are producing SUI and SUI-based projects on chain, native projects? Co-founder, chief scientist, Miston Labs. There's definitely qualified advisor, faculty fellow, Turing Institute, the Allen Turing Institute. This is high level, prestigious computer science. Um, yeah, this is it. Professor of security and privacy engineering, Facebook, research scientist, University of Cambridge, PhD. Guys, you can't get better than this. I'm just throwing that out there, okay? Like, we're talking about cream of the crop, peak talent here. Let's go forward. Um, then Costas. I listened to I think it was like a 1 hour podcast just recently about himself, his involvement and so on. He made it very clear that he was Greek and so on. So I it was great to hear the words cryptographer and all that, where it comes from in the Greek language. But co-founder and chief cryptographer from Miston Labs, now lead cryptographer for Meta. Okay, so this is where a lot of people get bullish, because he was there for 2 years, was working for WhatsApp, and so on and so forth, with creating the actual backend for privacy or cryptography for WhatsApp and all that kind of stuff. So he definitely qualified. Lots of good stuff here. Harvard online, I don't know what, and certified climate solution. Okay, so he's definitely sort of qualified in this space to be here as a cryptographer. So good stuff. And let's see who else we got here. As this Sam working on SUI Walrus Move. As you can see, this is the whole thing. University of Colorado at Boulder. Print. Look at this. Engineer at Meta, full time. Research assistant, University of Colorado, and then Facebook intern, research intern at Microsoft. Look at this. So young, you can tell by his resume, but still very qualified. Hit the ground running. Okay, so strong individual right here. Strong individual. And then Evan Cheng. So Syracuse University, and I get all kinds of flashbacks from when I did the deep dives on other SUI projects that are native to Miston or created by Miston Labs. Co-founder and CEO, director of R&D, Novi, but again, Facebook, engineering, languages, runtimes, all that kind of stuff. Apple, senior manager, low-level tools, senior manager, competition technologies, and so on and so forth. Back end, all kinds of stuff. Compiler engineer, lots from 2005. This guy's been here working at Apple for a good while. So very qualified. Lots to say about their qualifications and education. Okay, guys. So overall solid team. And then this dude right here, I don't know why, but I think he's more of the face of the project. I've seen him quite a bit on socials and such, and he does a great job at it anyway. So if he is the face, great. If he's not, it doesn't matter, because he's still doing a great job. Co-founder, again, CPO, product lead, Meta. Okay, again, head of product blockchain, VMware, blockchain at Cloud Oracle. And so definitely experience, Queen Mary University in London. So lots of experience, lots of education, lots of everything throughout the entire team. All co-founders come from Meta in some way or another and have lots of experience and can provide value to the team. So overall, guys, amazing. 10 out of 10. All right. So guys, I know you're here to talk about price action, all that stuff. We'll talk about the chart in a second, but what I want to take a look at is my review, my overall review. So let's do that. Now, um, as you know, I'm going to release these all over the socials. Um, and you're going to be able to download these at high quality resolution so that you can zoom in and do all that. Obviously, I'm going to put the timestamps in the video so you can see the full video and kind of navigate yourself to this review. But ultimately, guys, there's a lot to say here. There's a lot, and there's some things that I wasn't even really able to pick out from the documentation and so on to give me a bit of an edge, to give me that opportunity to basically speak about certain concepts. So that's important to me. So ecosystem, we can see that their ecosystem: DeFi, Cetus, gaming, AI, Deepin, Walrus, BTC Fi, USD, SUI. This is something that I wasn't able to really speak about, but they have their own native monetary infrastructure for SUI. And what does that mean? That means their flywheel has the ability now to keep liquidity within their ecosystem. There's no need to use external USDCs or USDTs or anything like that. They can keep everything within their own ecosystem. And for me, that is a bonus. Okay, that's something that should be, eventually we're starting to see that a lot of blockchains are having their own native tokens. And I think a lot of the times we might think, but is that necessary? Do we need to have one? Well, I think little by little, what we're trying to realize is that if a chain is going to keep its liquidity within its own, let's say, space and not have extractive events, it's going to have its stablecoin, a way for people to seek safe haven during moments where they don't want the volatility. And the only way really to achieve that is to have their own native stablecoin. And not only that, it provides that opportunity for staking and providing liquidity with that safety aspect and all that good stuff. Okay, so that's great. Ecosystem 9 out of 10, perfect, perfect, perfect. We just need a project really to spearhead and represent with strength. Okay, utility, gas fees, that's what you use it for. Staking and validator security, governance tied to validator level decisions, not full ecosystem control. That's the biggest problem that I'm seeing right now. Its governance is very limited, right? It's not a DAO, okay, where it's fully on contract. It's not a DAO, it's a governance in general, and that you have some things that you could vote on and some things that you can't. And that's where you start to say, okay, decentralization is on a spectrum. It's not, yes, I'm centralized, yes, I'm decentralized. It's on a spectrum. And we're trying to figure out based on these details, where does SUI fit? I think that based on its age, because really it's not that old, it still feels very centralized, okay, because of that. And as bit by bit it becomes more mature, the team is able to walk away a little bit easier. Same way with Cardano and Charles, right? He's able to walk away because of the maturity of the project. So again, we're waiting for that. The roadmap, no formal public roadmap, unfortunately, but they do a great job keeping everybody up to date on socials and what's going on. So I got to give them a bit of credit here. Infrastructure upgrades, RPC, data layers, that's what they might be looking for in the next little while based on some of their communications. Expansion into the AI, BTC Fi, as we can see, that is the hotter topic right now. And gaming still there, and they're trying to spearhead that, perhaps gets the first mover advantage into that, you know, narrative. Developer tools and improvements always happening, guys, because again, they want frictionless adoption, not only for the end user, and we will talk about that in a second, but also for the developers so their infrastructure or their ecosystem can continue growing. Now, the team is 10 out of 10, guys. The team is 10 out of 10. They have lots of experience everywhere, proven scale experience, research, engineering, all kinds, balanced team, protocol, product growth, everything 10 out of 10. Nothing else to say there. Champions for sure. Social, pretty good. 1.1 million followers with strong engagement. They're active, guys. They're active, and that's what I like. And I'm going to tell you something. There's one topic that I have yet to discuss because the only way you're really going to be able to discuss it is finding particular posts on X. But I'd rather spend a moment here and talk about it. And their socials right now, I think, are gaining some exposure because of their direct communication regarding quantum. Okay, their quantum communication right now, they are quantum ready, which means that all this worry about the quantum computing coming into a mainstream society that could potentially break blockchains and break tech as we know it, Sui's ready. Sui's ready to go. And this is how they're speaking right now on social. So this is their campaign is working, in my opinion. Their website is overcomplicated, guys. It's too much. It's too much. It's hard to navigate. Too many tabs necessary. Not enough concentrated information for people looking for retail deep dive research. It's all over the place. I felt a little bit uncomfortable even after the fact if I was actually extracting the information that I really needed, right? And it's a very typical, guys. As you guys know, I do a lot of deep dives. I have 145 under my belt. This is, I think, my 145th. Over 2 years of research, doing deep dives, videos, that is, and showing you guys that I am visiting websites and learning from these projects. And when I start to look at a project, I obviously use my experience and history as reference. And their website is too complicated and not retail friendly whatsoever. So it's probably the most complicated website I've seen in this space, right? It is. It might have all the information, but it's just scattered and not thought from a communications perspective. Okay, their marketing team looks great. It looks like they know what they're doing, but communications, as far as the marketing goes, needs to be rethought. Their website is too wide. It's too spread. It's too much. Too many links. Too many stuff. Not enough in concentration and too much repetition. But that's that. No Telegram and Discord is helpful and active. I appreciate the individual there that helped me out find some information regarding the tokenomics, but that's the problem. I shouldn't have to. I shouldn't have to get on the socials and start asking and digging for basic information. So vesting schedule, it's there, it's clear, it's there. Maybe more detail regarding the monthly emissions. Well, we have to use third-party applications, and you guys know I don't like using third-party all the time because sometimes they're wrong the way they aggregate their data and where they got their information. So that's that. Centralized distribution. Guys, it is very centralized as far as where their tokens are going to be distributed it over time. And that for me bothers me. I showed you their pie chart where you can see that a good 44% directly, without question, goes to early stakeholders. And portion of the transaction fees removed from liquidity supply via the storage fund. And this storage fund brings a little bit of ambiguity here because it's not a burn, but it does reduce circulating supply temporarily and in a soft way, not in a hard way. And then what happens to that fund? Who's in control of it? How does it get emitted? Is it meant to help the foundation? And so on and so forth. And technically, that gets back into the foundation hands, which who runs the foundation? Back to that whole centralized idea. USD SUI may anchor liquidity within SUI. For me, that's bonus. That's great. I like that. I think there shouldn't be a reason why a project couldn't have a stable coin. It shouldn't be. Now, it doesn't mean that particular stablecoin, USD SUI, has to be used as um, a payment currency or anything like that, right? Maybe USDT does become the mainstream stablecoin or USDC, but at least that you know that when you're in the SUI ecosystem, you can stay within it because you have support for stability, and that's what they're offering here with USD SUI. And so on. They have USDE and USDC and all that kind of stuff as well. But I'm interested to see more about USD SUI and where that's going. Relationships, they have a lot of good relationships. I wouldn't say not, there's a lot of partnerships all the times and all of these. And I try to really focus on relationship building rather than calling them partnerships. Okay, so Nansen Analytics, Layer Zero for interoperability, okay, and asset transfer and messaging and privacy and things like that. Payments integrations, X Money, Torter. So we're talking about payments. We want to see payment, how our payments are going to be used here, even micropayments, of course, because micropayments are going to bring a lot of mass adoption. Retail would a good retail software solution that takes on micropayments will get their fair share of adoption. AI infrastructure projects. Again, Talis, we talked about that, compute and agent frameworks. This is what we want to see, decentralized compute. Not only that, but agentic frameworks like agent frameworks to have their infrastructure, but also allow us to take those agents in full custody. That's what we need, not centralized, agents that essentially we have no control over. They're an asset. Once we train an agent and make an agent do what we need it to do, and it has the back end understanding of how to execute autonomously, that's an asset, guys. And I would like to take full custody of it. Those relationships are great, no doubt. But again, not very, not looking. We're looking for a strong one, a real strong one. And they're all listed on all exchanges, guys. If you're looking to trade exchanges, this is not for you. They're listed everywhere. Binance, Coinbase, Bybit, everywhere. Guys, check out KSEX, Ubit, BitNex. I have links in the description below if you're interested in using those no KYC exchanges. They're offering great trading bonuses at the current moment. Very competitive bonuses at the moment. So go check them out. Okay, so that's that. Now, if we zoom out a little bit, just to get into the tokenomics or coin info a little bit, as of today, a bit of volatility, guys. So I apologize if the numbers are a bit off, but right around $1.90, depending on the day that you're looking at it. Market cap is 3.6 billion. It's large market cap. The thing is that 39% of the tokens are already in circulation, right? And then you got to ask yourselves how many of them are centralized to the early stakeholders, right? And based on that, how what is the risk of dilution, right? This is the difficult part, right? So really be fair about the tokenomics. Max is 10 billion and so on. So that's that. And then to summarize, okay, just to summarize, my verdict and my summary. Okay, so my verdict is not necessarily a verdict. I should call this summary instead of verdict. In summary, it's an L1. They use the move language to encourage security. They have parallel executions to encourage speed. And as I mentioned, quantum ready. For me, this is big. And their social campaign has been doing pretty good, saying that there are not many projects that are quantum ready. I think they mentioned that there's only like three, if that. And some, even Bitcoin just came out recently, like um, the Bitcoin, there's no team, but you get what I mean. The foundation has mentioned that it's something that it needs to spearhead, and so did Vitalik. Okay, so it is what it is. Now we have ZK login and sponsor transaction. This is important because what they are trying to do is make SUI a very retail friendly, easy project to adopt. And the only way to do that is to make it feel, okay, to make it feel like it's not Web3. So it feels like a Web 2 app, but really the backend and the way it works is completely Web 3. Using blockchain, you have your gas fees, you have your wallets, you have your thing, but it seems like you have no wallet. It seems like you have no gas, but from an end user perspective. But the reality is it's there. So this is what they're trying to do is give that feeling of that. And as long as the user does not if as long as the user feels there's no wallet and no gas friction and none of that, then there isn't, right? Ignorance is bliss. Let's consider that. Waiting for one key project to put SUI on the map. I am waiting. There's not any real one that is really pushing hard that is getting them on the map. SUI itself is on the map, but the project itself needs to be put on the map for SUI's ecosystem to be put on the map. And that's probably the hardest thing right now. And they have put a strong emphasis on gaming in the past, which, to be honest, kind of went against things because gaming is doing pretty bad and generally the market is not quite happy with it. However, I feel that gaming is going to make a big comeback and leave a lot of people behind. And they have a good relationship with Overtake, supporting on chain assets and game infrastructure and so on. And the core team previously worked at Meta Facebook. Specifically on the Diem Libra blockchain project, and sub projects within there all over the place within the Meta ecosystem, WhatsApp and so on and so forth. So I think that as a verdict, as an overall summary from what it was able to deduce here, they are trying to become an L1 to become mainstream and to provide retail an experience that they feel comfortable using. Now that for me that's great, and their major competitor right now is Solana. And Solana has its level of centralization versus nodes as well. That's how they're able to achieve speed and so on. But SUI's tech seems to be just a bit better. In fact, a lot better. But it is what it is, guys. We can be on the Solana camp, we can be on the SUI camp, we can be whatever we want. But if we take in the factors that we discussed up today, we will come to the realization that SUI is not perfect either. Although it is a strong project, we have to understand that based on its current age of where it is, it's acceptable, it's understood, it is normal to see a lot of centralization, right? And as it reaches its maturity and tokens get fully decentralized or in full circulation, and the team gets their full allocation and the ecosystem starts growing because developers want to build on that L1, soon there's going to be no need for an ecosystem fund or any of that or marketing. Marketing happens by participation by you and I. And it starts to resemble something like Ethereum or even Bitcoin, where there is no marketing team. So this is the infancy stage where it needs a team to push, and in that team needs some liquidity and capital to push, and the team needs VCs, it needs runway. So we have to understand that. So for that reason, I'm giving it a decent rating because of the phase that it's in the current market in its product cycle. Okay, so SUI with the market cap Solana number one, will make it do about a 14x. I say, look, if SUI can get to $10 and more or less a 10x or something like that, I would be very, very happy to see SUI get to $10. Very, very happy. I think it would have achieved a great goal. Now, could it go higher? Possibly. We don't know, right? We can't tell the future. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm telling you, this is just a projection based on the fact that we are looking for competitive pricing, right? And not only that, it could even go higher based on we getting the total market cap back to 4 trillion and getting the total market cap higher and making a higher high on the total. That would possibly bring SUI and even Solana and other projects much higher than their current market cap, okay, and evaluation. So it is what it is. 9 out of 10 for SUI. Strong team, strong tokenomics, strong a lot of things, guys. Overall, a very, very healthy. All right, guys, I know you're here to talk about charts. So let's see what's going on with the SUI chart, because ultimately we've been looking at the SUI chart for a good while, almost every single night. A lot of people bullish on SUI. What do we got here? Let's see. At the end of the day, guys, SUI is within a range here on the 6 hour and now at the bottom. Okay, so we're gonna have to discuss this in a different way. We're gonna have to really discuss this, because what's really happening here is we are seeing a distribution like type of structure. I hate to say it, but it is, right? When you start looking at this sideways accumulation, and then this sweep above here, manipulation, and then distribution, guys, the likelihood here is that we start breaking down. Just likelihood. The actual bias is to the downside. However, risk to reward ratio for a long or a position here at this green arrow is at its best. Why do I say that? Why do I say, oh, we're looking bearish, but this is the time to go long? It's kind of weird, right? But this is the trader in me. This is the retrader in me that puts risk to reward first, right? And the structure giving me that clarity. So if we start looking at what's really happening here and we expand this on the 6 hour and we kind of straighten everything out here, right? You start to see that, generally speaking, this right here is at a range low. We can't get any lower before we BOS, before we break structure. A break of structure will confirm a lower low here, and that's not what we want. So it's a battlefield. So I'm telling you this, guys. I'm telling you this. If you're going to buy, you have to buy now. Now, again, not financial advice. Do your own thing, but I'll justify why. We get in here, put a stop loss right here, and you target up here. Risk to reward ratio is in your favor. It's 4-1, right? You take a small loss, I get it's a 5% loss, but a 20% gain. That's your risk to reward ratio. Now, I'm sloppy about it. You could probably snag a little bit closer and improve your ratio and improve your potential drawdown before being stopped out. And for me, that's perfect. In fact, what I would do is get into a low leverage position, because you have to understand that 2x will take you to about, let's say, a 5% drawdown. And then from there, you have to decide how much of margin I'm going to put in that I'm willing to lose. Right? You don't want to lose a lot, only 1-2% of your portfolio maximum. But let's say you get in with $100, and you lose, and you're on 2x. You have a lot of wiggle room to allow the stop loss to run a little bit, because at the end of the day, if you even at 2x you lose 10% of $100, that's only $10. You get my point, right? So it depends on your position size and your margin that you're going to put in. So 2x position size with $100 margin is $200, but your margin that you're putting at risk is $100, and you're going to lose potentially 10% of it, which is only $10. So do the math to justify your position size, because ultimately, if we do come down for another move and come back up, I want to be able to go long here, because this would be a whipsaw, straight up, straight down. This is whipsaw price action where longs and shorts get wrecked. That's a deleveraging scenario. And then this turns into a diamond pattern where people start claiming diamond patterns. And then we start looking for potential reversal, right? It's still there. Now, this is a bit of hopium, guys. I'm smoking a bit of hopium at the current moment, because the reality is if we start breaking down, we're extending. We're coming down lower. And that's the truth. And where do we go? Let's go on the daily here. Let's check out the liquidity zones. As you can see, the majority of the liquidity right now is coming back all the way back down here. There's no doubt about it, guys. All the way back down there is where we're going to want to come down and hunt. All the way here. Okay, and look at this imbalance. coming down to about 58 cents is where we go next if we start falling and extending based on Bitcoin's lead. Obviously, total market cap, keep an eye on it. But right now, longs are in your favor, of course. Maybe on the 6 hour, we're looking at structure. Now, how do you find your entry? You drop to the 1 hour and you start looking for your entry. You start looking for a shift of structure, something bullish to be bullish about, right? If you're going to buy spot, sure, buy a little bit on spot, 25%. If it falls, buy another 25%. You get what I mean? But if you're going to go into a leverage position, you got to wait for a shift of market structure on this downtrend, clearly. And we've hit the golden pocket extension on the. We must have covered this before on the 1 hour. You see this distribution? Perfect, perfect. What you really want to do right now is wait for this reclaim, and then not only that, wait for a shift of structure on this little downtrend right here. Lower lows and lower highs. Wait for some sort of reversal, signs of divergence, which we could get. Let's take out synergy signal. Not here. This synergy signal here, so we can get some detail here on what the oscillators are saying. By the way, guys, if you want to know more about synergy signal, links are in the description. This Uno reverse right here, bearish. Momentum still in a downtrend. There's very little signs of divergence, although there is. Okay, and in fact, I'll say maybe more than I thought. Lower lows here, lower lows on the price act, high lowers on the expansions, higher lows on the order flow, higher lows on the momentum, the purple line. So everything looking good. So far, we're melting downwards. At any moment, you see a sign of a shift of structure, you get in. Lots of divergences yet. Still, you need to see a higher high or higher low to go long here on SUI, and then you can get into a little bit of a position. Keep in mind that the daily still looks like absolute trash. Range lows is the target. Like I said, 80 cents, maybe even lower, 50 cents, even lower, and so on. Wait for this level of liquidity to be hunted before you, get too confident or too basically comfortable with the price action. We're still in a downtrend. We're just trying to find a short-term pump to the upside to capitalize on any of that volatility. All right, guys, if I've offered you any value in this deep dive, do the channel a massive favor. Slap the like button. It does really help out with the algorithm. If you want to follow me on those socials, the links are in the description. Better yet, guys, join the Discord. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. The best part is it's absolutely free. Take care, guys. Have a good one. And don't forget, buy the dip.